This is another bonus episode of the Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning podcast. We're doing a bunch of these this week with interview clips from various Michigan and Ohio State players and coaches. We already did Michigan's head coach for the week. That was Jim Harbaugh. Now we're going to do Michigan's head coach for Saturday only. That is Sherrone Moore. Here's the offensive coordinator for Michigan. He is also, while Jim Harbaugh is suspended, going to be the acting head coach for the Wolverines on Saturday as a guy who was probably not planning on doing that about 3-4 weeks ago. This is quite an assignment. We got a chance to talk to him on Monday up in Ann Arbor about some of his thoughts on the game, some of his thoughts on the team, a whole bunch of other stuff. We're going to let you hear directly from him. He's someone who, other than perhaps one post-game interview on the field at Penn State, you probably have not heard a lot from. He was a little more composed, a little more calm, a little more, PG rated during those interviews on Monday. All of those things are probably a good thing. So let's start with Sherrone Moore's thoughts on the Ohio State offense. What makes this Ohio State offense so dangerous?
Yeah, they're electric. They're balanced. Travion obviously gives them the ability to run the football very effectively. O-line's doing a really good job gelling at the right time, and then obviously skill player wise with Marvin and Mecca and Cade Stover and those guys, they've got guys that can make plays on the outside lanes and feel like the quarterback's playing his best football. So definitely a challenge that our defense is going to be up for. This
will obviously be the first time the Wolverines and Buckeyes meet on the field since last November. But a lot has changed. The Buckeyes have strengthened their defense. The offense has kind of gotten rolling recently. So what are Sherrone Moore's overall impressions of the Buckeyes this year?
Yeah, I think defensively they're really good. I think offensively they're really good. I think for us, it's just focusing on what we can control right now, which is the preparation into this game mentally, physically, and see what the outcome is after that.
The Michigan program is still Jim Harbaugh's program, no question about that. But you have to balance what Jim Harbaugh wants and getting Jim Harbaugh's input with the fact that Sherrone Moore has got to make those calls himself on game day. So how do you balance what Jim Harbaugh wants and getting that input from him and then implementing that plan on Saturday?
Yeah, I think the preparation that we've had up to this point in training camp and spring ball all through the season has really prepped us for these moments to think like Coach does and at the same time make the decisions that we think he'd want, and obviously situationally being aware of what's going on in the game. So we lean on each other all heavily in all those situations to make the right call.
Sherrone Moore was asked if he was planning on having extra conversations with Jim Harbaugh about best advice on how to handle all the outside noise and pressures specific to this week and this game.
Yeah, I probably be the one. He's trusts us and has prepared us for these moments. So it'll be probably more so me than anything than him coming to me. But I think our team, it's all about the players and how they prepare this week and how they mentally attack it, and looking forward to it.
I'm going to guess that the number of people who have Googled who is Sherrone Moore or background information on Sherrone Moore has gone up pretty significantly over the last few weeks. He's gotten obviously a lot more attention as Michigan's acting head coach. There's a lot more sideline shots of him. He's no longer sort of standing off to the side as Jim Harbaugh gets all the attention on the TV broadcast. So how has Sherrone Moore's life changed in the last few weeks?
Yeah, a lot more text messages. A lot more Facebook messages, which I don't really get on Facebook. So I see them pop up on my phone and just like, okay. Probably that more than anything. But other than that, same person. I'm doing the same things. When I go home, I still get yelled at, so it's all good. And my kids still run the house. So for me, it's the seeing in more interviews, more things. That's the biggest thing for me. And then managing the game situations during the game. But other than that, everything's been the same.
It is not just all extra text messages. There's a bunch of added responsibility as well with being the acting head coach. So how has Sherrone Moore's time management changed during the week with all the added stuff on his plate on the weekend?
Probably just thinking more so the situations, and as I plan, obviously when you're calling plays, you're thinking about that as well anyway, so that helps versus being on the defense side of the ball. So, but just thinking about all those situations more so if we're on defense and we're at the end of the half or things like that. So just putting those situations in my head more so times than I would if Coach was on the field.
You have undoubtedly seen a whole bunch of the Michigan versus everybody shirts and hats and everything else this week and in previous weeks that has sort of become a rallying cry for the Wolverines program. How much just all the stuff going on around the program right now really motivate Sherrone Moore and his guys in terms of it really being Michigan versus everybody else?
I think the kids they just do it anyway. They all have a chip on their shoulder, sometimes a boulder, and nothing we talk about internally constantly. We don't harp on. We're just trying to focus on beating the team that we're about to play.
This next one is a question that got asked a whole bunch of times by the same reporter, just asking different players. It's a really interesting question, and it's one coaches are probably not going to want to go too deep on, but just the way people answer this kind of question is always sort of interesting to me. So hopefully it's interesting to you as well. The question was, how much of the short and long-term futures of the Michigan program are tied up in the result of this one game?
We're just going to focus on this game. We're not going to try to talk about what's going on in the future or anything like that, and just attack today. That's how our kids have gone about their business every week. We haven't looked forward to anything else, and we're going to try to make this the best Monday we've had.
Michigan is coming off one of its closer, sloppier, worst performances of the season at Maryland. A lot of times the game before the Ohio State-Michigan game will look like that for one or both of the teams. It definitely did for Michigan. They had a 23-3 lead and then saw that slip away and then played what was pretty much a 60-minute game against Maryland before getting out of College Park alive. So what are some of the things that Sherrone Moore is looking to clean up coming off of that game at Maryland?
Yeah, just more detail, which I think it's crazy. All the guys were already in yesterday, so they've already started cleaning that stuff up, just detail on little things and finishing. The first half was really good, except for the last drive, and we drove down the field and had an unfortunate play that he hadn't had since Bowling Green. So just sustaining that same consistency that we had in the first half and the second half, and I think we're ready to do that.
Sherrone Moore got to coach one game as the interim coach earlier in the season during Jim Harbaugh's first suspension. Now during Jim Harbaugh's second suspension, this will be his third game of the second suspension and the fourth game overall as the interim or acting head coach of the Michigan football program this year. So what does Sherrone Moore know now about being a head coach that he didn't know before this all started?
A lot more interviews. And then, probably that was the interviews post, pre, having Dave around as much as he can. I learned that Dave he's phenomenal. I already knew that he was good at his job, but talk about a guy that's on point at every second. But besides that, the general feel for me, I'm just trying to do my part to help the team win as the game goes on.
Sherrone Moore also coaches Michigan's offensive line. So he's got the offensive line, he's got the offensive coordinator job, and now he's the head coach as well. So how difficult is that during a game? How different is his life during a game when he's got to manage all three of those roles?
Yeah, biggest thing is probably the game management stuff. And then talking to the refs, where I usually don't talk to the ref at all. And Coach wants me to make sure that I'm doing it. So that's probably the biggest thing for me. Usually I have no association with the refs at all besides pregame. I might know somebody or anything like that, but that's probably the biggest adjustment.
There has been plenty of conversation about what is on the line this weekend in Ann Arbor, and the answer is a lot, maybe everything. There's an awful lot on the line this weekend. What would it mean for not Sherrone Moore, but for the Michigan program to win this game on Saturday?
We all know what it means. It's the game. It's the one you practice, you play for, you work for all year. So we all know the stakes, and it'll give us a chance to go repeat on the Big Ten title. So the words, the prep, that'll come out a little bit more later on down the week. I try to keep it on a low boil this week because I can get pretty high really fast. So the kids are as prepared mentally and physically as they'll ever be to get ready for this week. So just excited to get with them today.
The Michigan offensive line is not what the Joe Moore Award in the trophy case or their reputation might lead you to believe. This is not the greatest Michigan offensive line, especially at the tackle positions. They've been a little shaky recently. They've had an injury. Carson Barnhart has kind of struggled in pass protection. So what is the confidence level for Sherrone Moore in Carson Barnhart right now? And what's Carson Barnhart's confidence level right now? And what do you tell him as the offensive line coach? What do you tell Carson Barnhart in going into a game like this?
Yeah, I think just in general in football, you're going to have bad plays. You play against really good players. So we always talk about FIDO, forget it and drive on. And if you don't do that as a football player, it'll harp you regardless of your position, quarterback, running back, O-line, tight end, defense. All those things happen, so you got to make sure you push on forward because that's going to happen. So now you got to refocus and get ready to go.
Earlier, you heard Sherrone Moore talk about the fact that he has to deal with talking to the refs now. That is not something that was in his job description before. Well, it is now. So did Jim Harbaugh give him any advice on how to talk to those refs?
No, I don't, and I'm not going to talk to him like how he talks to him. He can say whatever he wants to the refs. I just try to communicate and just get an understanding for what's going on and what they're calling, what they're seeing, and do what's best for our team and help our team as much as I can.
Going into a game like this on this kind of a stage with this kind of magnitude of everything going on, how do you balance not having J.J. McCarthy do too much? You don't want him to do too much. You don't want him to press. You don't want him to make mistakes. But also, you don't want to limit him. You don't want to put him on too short of a leash because he's a great athlete and has been really a key piece for this Michigan offense all year. So how do you balance not doing too much and not doing not enough?
Just let him be him. Let him be him. When you got a really good player, you can't put the handcuffs on him. You got to let him play. Let him. He made the mistake and he learned from it, and he won't make it again. So that'll be huge for us as we go down this stretch.
It has been widely reported that the first 9 or so games of the season for Michigan were not against the Big Ten or the NCAA's very best competition. They did not face a lot of particularly elite defenses during the course of the year. They did not face a bunch of particularly elite offenses for much of the year. But things have improved on the schedule front the last couple weeks. The Purdue defense 3 weeks ago was pretty good. The Penn State offense was not great, but the defense was pretty good last week or 2 weeks ago. And then Maryland's pretty solid on both sides of the ball. So how have those last few defenses they've played prepared Michigan for Ohio State? And is Ohio State the best defense they've seen on film this year?
Yeah, I mean, besides our defense, I think they're the best one. Obviously, I think Penn State was up there. I think Purdue's was up there. But the stats speak for themselves, and you see it on film. They're good at every position. They're deep at every position. So it's going to be something we got to prepare for mentally and physically. So we're excited for it.
Well, that will do it for Sherrone Moore. You will see him again on Saturday. You will not see Jim Harbaugh, but you will see Sherrone Moore. You'll see Blake Corum. You'll see J.J. McCarthy. You'll see Mike Sainristil still. You'll see all those guys on our YouTube channel and on the Buckeyes TomOrrow Morning podcast feed this week, as well as we give you a bunch of these bonus episodes. You'll see them on Saturday as well. You will see us on Saturday, too. Tony Gerdeman, Kevin Noonan, and I will be up there in Ann Arbor. The plan is for a live pregame show. We'll see how the internet situation holds out for that one, but we're going to do our very best to do that for you on Saturday morning. And then, of course, our live post-game show coming up at the end of that game. Boy, one fan base is going to be real happy, and one fan base is going to be very upset, and it's going to be so interesting to find out which is which. Win or lose for either team, we will be there. Live post-game coverage from Ann Arbor, from Michigan Stadium. Interviews with Ohio State players and coaches, interviews with Michigan players and coaches, live reaction from the stadium, live reaction from our X's and O's analysts, and much, much more. That is all going to be at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. So make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. Make sure you hit that bell on our YouTube channel. There's going to be a lot to talk about after that game, a huge game, not just in terms of the rivalry and the standings this year and the Big Ten race, the national championship race, but narratively, holy smokes, is there a lot on the line this Saturday. I can't wait to talk about it. It is going to be such a fascinating football game and such a fascinating bunch of fallout from that football game. So youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. Make sure you're there because we will be there. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time.